So this is my J.J. Abrams Star Trek shelf. I guess they call it the Abrams verse or the J.J. I don't care. I like the first Star Trek film that he produced, and I liked Beyond. These toys, even though they're wonderful and I like them very much, are from Into Darkness. Now, I'm one of those kind of people that are like, fandom is fandom, and if you love TNG but dislike DS9, you're a Star Trek fan. And that's fine. It's okay for you to dislike parts of a fandom. There's nothing wrong with that. I try to keep an open mind and I try to keep everything positive. I like this, I enjoy this. People that constantly say how much they hate something, I can't be in the same room with them. It's just so aggravating and annoying, and I don't need it in my life. Having said all of that, Star Trek Into Darkness is my least favorite Star Trek film. It's difficult for me to say that, especially, after saying I enjoy Star Trek so much. But Into Darkness, I don't know what they were thinking. I've seen that movie far less than I've seen Star Trek V. And I am not a fan of Star Trek V. Shatner can't direct. It was just an abysmal failure from the Enterprise A warping sideways. To the fact that the Klingon disruptors on their bird of prey have recoil in a RoboCop 2-esque stop motion way. It was just an absolute mess of a film. And so is Into Darkness. It is so full of every imaginable hole. It's really hard to not make comparisons between Into Darkness and the saga that leads up to the Wrath of Khan. I mean, you get a whole episode of TOS Star Trek where you meet Khan Noon Singh, and then you get the revenge plot in the Wrath of Khan. You get the reason why he wants to kill Kirk and take his revenge. You get none of that in Into Darkness. It is just introduction, and then you are incredibly fortunate that Leonard Nimoy is there on the view screen to tell them he's one of Kirk's biggest nemesises. But there's no point. I mean, the whole thing is convoluted to start with, and then somehow all of his people are on torpedoes, and then magically they can transport distances across the galaxy, and then Khan's blood can cure Kirk, and then you get the Mr. Spock reversal that no one asked for. It's just such a mess. It's like somebody watched Wrath of Khan once, and they're like, you know what? I can do better than that. And they're incredibly wrong. They are so wrong. Into Darkness is the only one I will not actively engage in conversation in because I do not like being negative. I hate being negative, especially when it comes to something that I love so much, and that is Star Trek. And I just cannot handle a conversation where somebody's like, oh yeah, Into Darkness is one of my favorite films. Because I immediately want to go, why? How? What? Where does it grab you? Where? What part? Is it Benedict Cumberbatch, whom I love as an actor, has done wonderful things, was not even remotely Khan Noon Singh. I understand the whole Kirk's father sacrifices himself, makes ripples in time, and all of those ripples affect everything around us. The problem is those ripples don't go back in time. The ripples go forward in time. So it does not change who Khan was, where he came from. I mean, there's just so many things. I don't know. I almost want to go watch it again just so I can remember why I hated it so much. And I hate watching. Hate watching is the worst thing in the world. But I can't. I can't even. It's the only things that I really can't even. Had it been somebody who wasn't trying to get a Star Wars movie made, who was not trying to get hired as a Star Wars director, we probably would have gotten a better movie. Anyway, sorry. It's just one of those things. I don't like speaking negatively about something that I love, but there are always going to be aspects of what you love that you're not going to like. And if it's easier for you to talk about the things you hate, you're not a fan. You're just not a fan. And there are so many aspects of Star Trek that I love, and so few things that I can't stand. And Into Darkness is just one of those things where if somebody says, "Hey, it's one of my favorite Star Trek movies," I want to pull my hair out. I'm like, "How? How can this be your favorite Star Trek thing?" I have never seen a worse emotional line uttered than when Zachary Quinto is over top of Kirk's body in this total unwarranted, unnecessary death swap and screamed Khan. It is so out of character. And like I said, I understand the ripples of Kirk's father dying on that ship. It changes everything. It's a butterfly effect, yada, yada, yada. But it doesn't change the fact that there are so few instances of Leonard Nimoy's Spock being like that. I mean, even if Kirk would have died, he would have been sad. He would have been uncharacteristically sad and probably shed a tear. And the entire fandom back in 1982 in The Wrath of Khan would have been like, "Oh my God, this is so moving. This is so emotional. This is so amazing." I guarantee it. But because all he did was ball up his fists, scrunch up his face, look up into the sky, and say, "Ka!" Oh. It is just awful. And it is the wrong circumstances. And, it plays into that other trope to where, who's he yelling to? Is he just yelling to yell? I mean, why? Why would a Vulcan who has spent decades being trained, regardless of his human... I mean, it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Star Trek Beyond is so much better. It is a Star Trek movie. The first Star Trek, where they're establishing the universe, weird, but, still a good movie. It's still a good movie to watch. Into Darkness, there are no redeeming qualities of that mess of a film, except the toys. I like these toys. Now, I like Zachary Quinto as Spock. I like Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. I mean, they're really good. They're great actors. They play the role really well. They were just handed crap scripts and told to fight every single instinct as an actor that they had and just say what was written. But anyway, we're talking about the toys now. I digress. Okay, so so I believe we'll start here. This is a static hand phaser from Into Darkness. And you'll find that the majority of these are from Into Darkness because that's where a lot of... didn't seem like there was a lot going on with Star Trek 1 except for the smaller little figures, which I don't have any of. I have that playset that I showed you. I think it was episode 5 of this that I showed that little playset with the mat from the first Star Trek film. But this is from Star Trek Into Darkness, and it's a static thing. It does flip like this. So you do get your stun and your kill settings, and there's no button to flip that. But it's a nice little prop and a nice little decoration piece. And this stand is actually really cool. I like how it slots in. The little dots go into this little piece, and then the little foot is held in place with this notch. And then, yeah, it just sets up. It's a really cool piece. And, the tech is weird. I thought the phaser adaptation for the movie was actually pretty cool. I really didn't get the teeny tiny tricorder. The communicator was really cool, but the little teeny tiny tricorder, I really didn't get that. But here's Spock. Zachary Quinto as Spock. And as you can see, he's got little pieces here. He's got his communicator. He's got his tricorder. He's also got 3 phasers. Here's a phaser rifle. Here's another phaser rifle. And then here is the Type 2 phaser. These phaser rifles are very strange and seem like they are just going with the flow. You know, I mean, I don't even remember this one being in the movie. But, you know, whatever. Got little phaser effects that you can attach to the front, which was a big thing during this time period. You got a lot of Avengers, Iron Man figures that had multiple hands and then had little blasts and stuff like that. But that is Zachary Quinto right there as Spock, as Into Darkness, and, you know, the likeness. I mean, look at that face. That's fantastic. I like Zachary Quinto. I think he's a wonderful actor. I think he made a wonderful Spock in the first and third movies. He played the younger Spock really well, very thoughtfully. But in that Into Darkness, I don't get it. I don't get any of it. I really, really don't. And now here is Chris Pine as Captain James Tiberius Kirk, as the little blonde kid screamed out strangely. That whole series is just weird. All 3 of those movies are like, you know, what? You know, it's not it's an adaptation. It's a interpretation, you know, and I'm fine with different directors interpreting things differently. But when you have such an interesting and lore-driven series like Star Trek, you go back and you reinvent the wheel. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of people. Here again is Kirk, Chris Pine. Very nice likeness of Chris. I think that's really good. The sculpt is really cool. I do not understand these mid-torso breaks here. I mean, it's like, are they going to twist this way and look behind him? Is he just meant to look back? Is he meant to do ab crunches? I don't know. That's a really strange one. And then his hips are also strange because they're hinged in like the top area there, and then I think they split, and then you've got a nice leg right there at the thigh where it twists that way. His feet do tilt, which is nice, so if you get him out of the box, you know, you get you can pose him fairly well. He's also got the weird phaser over here that Spock has, but he also has more of a traditional TNG DS9 type 3 phaser right there, which I think looks really cool and looks very Federation. And then his Type 2 phaser right there. Various fists. And then there's a little booklet in the back talking about Diamond Select toys. Oh yeah, by the way, these are Diamond Select toys. We can kind of look at the back here real quick. Oops. Sorry about that. There he is. All face a lot thinner in this representation than what we saw up front here, I think. Definitely not the same face. Tell me if you agree. That face looks a lot rounder. This face, a lot thinner. And then, of course, there's Mr. Spock. So they only came out with the 2 figures in this series. But yeah, this is from Into Darkness. Diamond Select 2018. They're great figures. They're great sculpts. They're a lot of fun to have displayed. I really enjoy them. I look at them every time I pass by. So here's Playmate's representation of the new Enterprise. I like the design. I think that it's kind of cool. I think that it's a wonderful take on an established ship. My main problem with the Enterprises, and there are many in the J.J. Abrams verse, is that they are not characters. They are just houses. They're mobile homes, and they can be destroyed at will, and there is no emotional attachment to them. And I think that's another big issue I have with J.J. Abrams and his direction of Star Trek. The Enterprise is a character. It was a character in the motion picture. It was a character through the Wrath of Khan. When Khan shot those phasers at the side of the Enterprise, you winced because you're like, that is a character being cut open. when they sacrifice the Enterprise in the third film, The Search for Spock, and it's leaving that trail over top of the Genesis planet, you're like emotional because Kirk is emotional because that's his ship. And Bones has to reassure him, you did what you had to do, turn death into a fighting chance to live. That's the thing. And then when he gets it back at the end of 4, where they've recommissioned and given it an A, you're like, oh my God, she's back. And then he completely destroy. Oh God, 5. So maybe someday I'll sit down and have a why do I hate 5 and Into Darkness session and force all of you to sit through that for whatever 5, 10, 15, a half hour that I'm ranting and raving about that stuff. It's really better if I have someone to bounce it off of, I think. But anyway, I'm sorry. Back to this. This is from Playmates. It's got a really funny set of battery compartments. 1 AAA goes here, and then 2 AAAs go underneath here. And then there's an on and off function. Unfortunately, for some reason, I've got a screw loose in here, and it will not play. I've put new batteries in. I've actually taken them back out and cleaned out the compartments just to make sure it wasn't that. It's very strange. Unfortunately, the electronics seem to be dead in the water. But as far as ships go, this Playmates, there are actually a lot fewer screws in holding this in place than a normal Playmates ship has. But yeah, so this is the Enterprise from Playmates. Well, if you hate it so much, why do you have so much of it? I don't know. I bought this in Vegas to the Star Trek convention in Vegas. This actually, I think, was a DVD extra when you bought the box set, and someone had separated it, and it was just sitting out, and I'm like, that is so cool. I would love that. And I think it was like $70 at the time. So, but yeah, that was back in 2016. Why do you have these things? Well, because, Star Trek is good, and, the first Star Trek and then Star Trek Beyond, wonderful films, and there's no indication on either one of these figures that these are from Into Darkness. Now, this is another Hot Wheels from, I think that's actually from the first Star Trek film. Into Darkness, does it get blown up? That's just awful, isn't it? I just can't remember. Because it's just not a character. It's a mobile home in Into Darkness. It's not a character. It basically almost gets obliterated in the first film, and then it gets refitted. And then in the second film, it does get blown up and destroyed. But anyway, so this is the Hot Wheels representation of the J.J. Abrams Enterprise. And it's a wonderful likeness. If you put it in a certain light, the buzzard collectors on the nacelles actually kind of glow a little green, which is really kind of cool and very pretty. But I like the stand. I am afraid to pull the little bulb out of there. I'm afraid it's going to bust because it has been sitting there for some time, and things like that get brittle. So over time, regardless of where they are. So even if it were off here and I would try to slap it on there, possible that little bulb up there will just bust. So, but anyway, so this is the battle-damaged Enterprise from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. And now we're going to give these a quick little wipe down and maybe wipe some of the bad taste out of my mouth from the terrible, lengthy, breathy crap fest that I just shoveled out at the beginning of this. And again, I apologize, but Into Darkness is definitely one of those sore spots that if I get going, it's hard to stop because there is so much wrong with the film, in my opinion. Anyway, Star Trek Beyond definitely benefited from having a different director. It was so much better to watch. Anyway, let's get to Dustin.